It's April 24th, 2025. We're closing in on the start of the North Country Honor Flight season. We got Judy Castine on the camera. I am Calvin Castine. We are here in the luxurious offices of the North Country Honor Flight. And normally when we do this, we have always had Barry Finnegan with us, and for the past several years, Janet Dupree, but neither one of them showed up today, so guess we're settling for you two ladies. Now, I heard there's a new Janet Dupree. Do you know who that might be?
Yes, it's me.
And who are you?
I'm Gina Bond. I'm the new Director of Operations for North Country Honor Flight.
Okay, so you're taking Janet Dupree's place?
Yes, I am.
And your name?
Jerica Manning, and I'm the Executive Officer for North Country Honor Flight.
All right, so what's Barry's title?
Executive Director of North
There you
Country
go.
Honor Flight.
Everybody has an office. You show up, they'll give you an office. They want volunteers. So we've got 4 dates, I believe. Is that correct? And I'm just going to throw these questions out, so they're not necessarily one over the other of you. So if both of you feel free to to jump in as you want. So I don't want to make it sound like I'm leaving anybody out when I'm asking the questions. What are the dates?
The dates for this year's upcoming flights are May 17th, June 28th, September 6th, and October 4th.
Okay. Now, in the past years, we've had double flights in the last few years. We used to have more dates, and then they cut down on the dates a few years ago and went to double flights. But I'm hearing there might not be as many, if any, double flights this year. Is that correct?
So we're still going to have double flights.
Okay.
We charter our planes through Air Charter Express. There are 30 passengers each, and we do 2 for each flight day. So we'll still have 8 30-passenger planes this year. There were, discussions about our waiting list, and that we're able to get through a lot of the names on our waiting list. But as many people may have seen over the last month or so, we've been doing a push to encourage Vietnam veterans to apply for North Country Honor Flight, and that has worked out. Gina does have those numbers. We have gotten an influx of applications since we put out that press release, with a lot more people discussing, putting in that application, and us encouraging applications to still continue to come in so that we can keep the flow going of veterans that are going to Washington.
Okay. Every once in a while, I have to remember when I'm doing these things that you sometimes start off and you think everybody knows what you're talking about. But who wants to tell me what Honor Flight is to begin with?
Well, Honor Flight, the mission of Honor Flight is a mission of gratitude. And we send our veterans to Washington, D.C. to thank them for their service and for their sacrifice, and to have such great memories of maybe to them, maybe it's a welcome home for them, a homecoming, or maybe it is visiting someone on the wall. So we give them an opportunity to enjoy all of their memorials.
Started off, was it 2013, the North Country Honor Flight, I believe. I haven't missed one yet, so I intend to keep making these. Started off to thank the World War II veterans. For some reason, the World War II veterans were one of the latest ones to get a monument in Washington, D.C., so a lot of them in their younger years, if they had gone to Washington, didn't get a chance to see a monument that hadn't been put up yet. So it was a way to send those veterans. Then there are fewer and fewer of them around because, let's face it, the World War II ended in 1945. So if you were 18 in 1945, which is 80 years ago, you'd be 98 years old right now.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
it's
Yeah, well, we do have, on this upcoming flight, we do have a World War II veteran. He's 100 years old. And we do have a Korean War veteran, and he's 91, and he's from Saranac Lake. So we always get these World War II and Korean applications usually during the time period we're preparing for the flight. So sometimes they come at the last minute, and we are more than happy to get them on as soon as we can.
yes. Sometimes people might be booked on the flight with the understanding that if a priority comes along, that maybe they'd be pushed back to the next flight. Is that correct?
We always try and leave some extra seats in case there's somebody who is terminal or older that has put in a recent application. So if you're told that you're going on a flight, it's very unlikely that you'll be removed to prioritize, because we try and plan ahead for that. But we are encouraging everyone to get their applications in so that we can prioritize, so that Gina can prioritize the list, make sure that we're getting those who may be more time sensitive are on the flights, the earlier flights.
Yes, and there's really no time period. One of the ones you mentioned that was a priority because of health reasons was a recent one. I'm not sure if it was Afghanistan or exactly which conflict he was in, but he was a young man, and unfortunately he's not longer with us, but that was why he became a priority. And so if you've served, contact the North Country Honor Flight. And how does somebody do that anyway?
So they can go on our website, northcountryhonorflight.org, our Facebook page, which is North Country Honor Flight. And on our website, there are contact emails and phone numbers, as well as application forms for the veterans and for the guardians. And those can be mailed to us. Our P.O. Box number is 2644, Plattsburgh, New York. And all of the applications get mailed in and processed almost immediately by Gina. We'll give them a call and see what their needs are, when they serve, what their age is, and we'll get them on the list.
And which area are you looking to get your veterans from? Obviously, in more than just Clinton County. Some people are. Sometimes it surprises me how far away do they have to have some link to a certain area? I mean, sometimes a person may have grown up here, served here, still has family here, but no longer lives here, but still feels that they're part of the North Country. And other times they might be new to the area. But how far an area generally do we cover?
Well, we have applications from a lot of areas, and we go many different directions, right? So we have people on our list from New Hampshire. We've got people on our list from Massachusetts. We've got people, in Saranac Lake and south, further than that. We try to get a good combination of them on the flight so that our flight leaders, when they go out and visit, that can kind of stay in kind of that same area. So they're, and then we do have some, that are local too. We've got a lot of Plattsburgh, Peru, Keysville veterans, and we encourage everyone. We encourage everyone to apply, especially the ones that have a history of being, from the North Country, and that way we can recognize their service.
The North Country is such a broad area, right? Clinton County, Franklin County, Essex County, St. Lawrence County, those applications all come in. The closest other hubs in New York, there are 10 hubs in New York, would be Albany and Syracuse. And then closest to the east would be New Hampshire. And so we split Vermont a lot of the time. We get a lot of veterans out of Vermont. A lot of veterans right down to, I'd say, Ticonderoga would be within the North Country area. And then, as you mentioned, people who have ties to this area. We had an Air Force base here, and so we have a lot of people who are stationed here, who have family here, might not no longer be here, but who have ties to the North Country. Those applications will take.
Yeah, I've seen them coming across that bridge in Rouse's Point, coming from Vermont, and even some from north of the border come through once in a while that want to take part in this. Yeah, it's relatively surprising that there aren't more hubs. That so this North Country Honor Flight has taken such a large area. I imagine you work closely with the organizations, veterans organizations of all kinds, to encourage their membership, and people that may not even be members, but this guy might or gal might be a member, and knows somebody who isn't a member but also was over there. So you work closely with the veterans organizations?
We work closely with many of the legions and VFWs in the area. We try to make sure that we have applications on hand at most of those locations. A lot of the veterans who are volunteers with us are member of those organizations, so they're able to spread the word. And some legions and VFWs are some of our best fundraisers as well.
Fundraisers. I mean, you have to raise money. These flights, the airlines don't just donate the plane to you can fly there. So it's an ongoing challenge, I'm sure, because this has been going on. This is 12 years now, and people may have given in the past and say, "Whoa, I think I've done my part." So you're always encouraging some people, new people, to get on board, and the old people to to help out. What are some of your major fundraisers right now?
Our biggest fundraisers are, well, small dollar, right? Donations.
Right, you just go to some convenience stores and you see a little box there with an
Yeah.
Honor Flight logo on it.
Our coin jars raised $15,000 last year. That almost pays for, well, not quite a plane, but it certainly helps. Those add up, and the volunteers that we have that go around and collect those are very committed and diligent, and they make sure that they're always collecting those change jars. So businesses who allow us to have those in their businesses are very appreciated. That goes a long way. Other fundraisers, there are businesses throughout the North Country. I wouldn't even begin to name them, but who have fundraisers for us. Roundups. Gina's participated in a lot of roundups at different organizations in Plattsburgh and outside of Clinton County as well. It's becoming more popular. Restaurants. And then business sponsorships are another big one. And then fundraisers, you'll see them all throughout the summer. 5K run here,
Golf tournaments.
golf tournaments,
Have a big golf tournament.
some car shows, and then different kinds of applications that we'll put out. You know, businesses that will solicit for donations. Everything is volunteer, and everything's paid for by donations. And so we have a really big group of people who participate in helping us pay for Honor Flight.
Yes, I've often said when we sit here with Barry that if you volunteer, join the committee, you immediately get the same pay bracket as Barry Finnegan. So you're right up there at top level with with Barry's paycheck. So nobody is making a dime on this. What does rough figures? What does it cost? You know, you provide jackets to the people going. There's every person going has a guardian, so it's two people when there's and then there's flight leaders. What does it cost for a flight and a double flight? Roughly.
We're gonna test our math abilities here.
Is it 35 a flight?
Per plane.
Yeah.
Yep. And then all of the extras, like you mentioned, the jackets, the hats, the meals, the bus in DC. We're lucky a lot of our expenses here are donated, but some of them we definitely have to pay for, like the food. And so,
And the veteran organizations we work with down in DC, they are veteran-owned organizations, so they also help us with the cost of the meals. So that helps us a lot. That helps us a lot. And we're going to go through the Honor Flight Network, which also gives us a discount on the buses. So that is a cost savings for us as well.
So saying it costs $75,000 per
ceremony day.
per day
Per day.
for the 4 flights each. That's $300,000 a year. That's a lot of fundraising. That's a lot of dollars that's going to be taken care of to make all this possible.
That's right.
And with that, you'll send. You said, is it 15 times 2 veterans? You're sending generally 30 veterans per thing. So you're talking about roughly 120 veterans will be going this year.
That's right.
How long? How large is your list right now?
Right now, the list is at 146, and that includes veterans from a couple years ago. So we pretty much caught up on the list, but we had some that were back from 2021. So we're sending them. We're sending them first. But then we've gotten, since the press release on the Vietnam push, we've gotten an additional 23 applications and those have come in the last couple weeks. So that push has really helped. And also, you know, after the flight goes out, the first flight in May, and everybody gets to see it again, it becomes new again, right? And then we find that more and more people want to go. So we get an influx of applications after the first flight.
So it wouldn't hurt anybody's feelings if everybody who wanted to go has gone, right? You're not going to perpetuate this if there's no need for this. So if a year from now, if everybody who wants to go is able to go, I'm sure people work North Country Honor Flight would miss the work, but having everybody gone wouldn't be a bad thing either, would it?
Well, Vietnam, I know for a fact that there are hundreds of Vietnam veterans, dozens of Korean War veterans who haven't applied yet. And our goal with that Vietnam push that Gina mentioned through the press release is to get those veterans, like you mentioned at the beginning of the interview, we started this with World War II. A lot of the Vietnam veterans didn't feel like it was their time. They felt like they needed to help the organization, supported us with being motorcycle escorts and volunteers at the ceremonies. But the goal of Honor Flight is still to celebrate those Vietnam veterans. And so the World War II veterans have flown. We've gotten, I would say, most, if not all, in our local area
That wanted to go.
that wanted to go. The Korean War veterans, I would say, like I said, probably dozens left that we would still like to see apply, and hundreds of Vietnam War
Yes.
veterans that we want to stress that now is the time to apply. We'll get you on the list, and we by no means are looking to wind down our waiting list. We want to fly as many veterans as possible. And then the truth of the matter is there have been several wars since the Vietnam War.
Right.
So I attended Honor Flight National Summit. There are plans for more memorials, for more wars to be built at the National Mall. And that's certainly something we'll focus on in the years to come. But right now, our focus is on the remaining Korean War veterans and the Vietnam veterans to make sure that they're 100% aware and confident that now is their time to apply and now is their time to fly to DC.
Yes, when you talk to people who fought over there in Vietnam, and some of them came back and had to take their uniform off because the hippie protesters were out there and blaming them for the war, and they came back and they weren't personally embarrassed by their uniform, but were afraid to wear it out there in public. So it's a terrible way to treat these people who gave so much. We lost, I think, well over 50,000. I think in Vietnam. I didn't count when the wall was in was in Moors. I didn't go around and count all the names.
Might
But
leaving you out.
yeah, but and seeing those names on there, the veterans that we see that go, and they see a family member or a comrade's name, it's really meaningful to them when they see that Vietnam Wall in
Yes,
DC.
it is. Yes, it is. I had a Vietnam veteran on my flight last June when we went down and we walked in. He lives up on the reservation, and we walked in and he started to cry. We just walked in the door and he just started to cry. He felt so honored by having been his application had been accepted, and he said I feel like this is my welcome home that I never got. So we took him down, and he and his wife, with the rest of the two flights, spent the day down there, and he felt a big relief off of his shoulders. He got to spend some time, reflecting and just visiting with his comrades on the wall. So he came back with a new sense of freedom. So he was very appreciative.
Yeah, it helped put that bad memory
Yes.
in.
Yes. He had a lot more he needed to unpack, but
Right.
but it was probably too much. But this gave him an opening at least to start that process. So
And you say application was accepted. I would imagine there are very few applications that aren't accepted.
What I meant to say, not really accepted, but we pulled his name. Right. It was time for him to go. So as it is for a lot of them, we just are trying to get them on as soon as we can. So it was his turn to go.
I think another common misconception amongst Vietnam veterans and all veterans is like, I can't apply. I wasn't boots on the ground. I wasn't a combat veteran.
Right.
And that's not true at all. Anyone who enlisted during that time signed their name
Or drafted.
or was drafted, and they were put into the position that they were needed in most. And so I had a veteran on my flight. He was a mail carrier. He was in the Air Force for 20 years. He probably delivered some of the life-saving letters that these combat veterans received. And I think that it's important to note that is just as important of a job. And he served our country the way that he was chosen to. And all of those applications are accepted.
Yes, that's important. I think very important to mention that you don't have to have been out there ducking bullets to apply for this. You know, if you served, you're more than welcome. You're encouraged to take part in this and get your proper due as far as letting the community thank you for your efforts. And you know, we hear so much now about PTSD and the sad things that are going on with our current veterans, and it was no different back in Vietnam. A lot of people that I grew up with came back with a lot of problems, and you know, it's taken them. You know, they didn't always put them out there in front. They hid them in the closet and lived with them, but that doesn't mean they weren't there.
Gina mentioned, you know, they didn't get that welcome home, and you spoke on it too. And I think that the North Country community has really understood the assignment of the welcome home. There's a crowd here when they land after a trip in DC, and that's really what was missing, right? That they were yearning for. The amount of people who show up in the community, from the law enforcement officers to the fire services to the bikes, those who organize the ceremonies, and line the roads, you know, when we're having that parade out of the ceremony, understood or understand the assignment of giving these veterans the thanks that they deserve and that they didn't necessarily get when they came home.
And that parade really continues when you get down to DC. There are many groups that come in specifically for Honor Flight, and they are waiting there at the memorials to form lines, to clap, and to cheer, and to make these veterans feel like they are home and that they're going to be celebrated for their service and sacrifice. And our veterans are just blown away by the treatment that they get first here when we come through Plattsburgh at the Oval when we have the ceremony, and then it just continues on all day. They are just so overwhelmed by it and appreciated, and it's everywhere when you go down in DC. It's every memorial that you get that reception.
Yeah, the last year or so, the parade onto the Oval here is it's really been amazing. With, of course, the bikers have always been a part of this. The local first responders, police, fire departments, EMS people, the border people, they've always been a part of this. But now to have that parade that comes on here early in the morning onto the Oval is just overwhelming. I know every once in a while you'll see on Facebook someone who complain about the noise. Well, tough.
Exactly.
You know, and Judy and I were both very impressed when we went as not as veterans, but went along several years ago on a flight. Just as you said, as soon as you get off the airplane, you get people, you know, in DC. As soon as you get off the plane, there are people there, and young and old, that show up to all of these. It's just amazing that these people have that kind of dedication and are able to do that to thank the veterans from up here.
Yes, the North Country people really come out to honor and respect. They have so much pride in their veterans and in this organization and this ceremony that they look forward to these events, right? And so when the first one comes, we get people that come from all over the place. We get former veterans that come. I've got people that come in from all over the place that have experienced Honor Flight, and they come back just because they want to be part of what they see around here. You know, these North Country people really roll out the red carpet, and they line the streets, and they line everywhere. They're everywhere, and they love coming to the ceremony to honor these veterans.
When I first started as a volunteer with Honor Flight 4 or 5 years ago, Barry mentioned, you know, welcome to the Honor Flight family. And he welcomes all of the veterans every time there's a ceremony to the Honor Flight family and the volunteers. And that, you know, resonated with me at the time, but now it means so much more. You see the hats that you're wearing and the jacket that people have, and that's probably the most recognizable piece of apparel in the North Country. And so these veterans get to continue wearing their jackets and be thanked, you know, at the coffee shop because it's like a veteran's hat, right, and a jacket. There's this family that grows by 30 veterans every ceremony, 120 veterans a year, and it just keeps growing and growing, and the crowd at the ceremony keeps growing because they want to come and witness the next flight, enjoy the experience that they enjoyed.
Yeah, and sometimes the guardian is a veteran of recent times, so oftentimes you're sending more than just the 30 veterans. You're sending a few that are guardians that are also veterans, but I'm sure the younger veterans aren't too happy with one part. When you go on these flights, when you get to DC, you get to sit all the time. You get pushed around, whether you're as healthy as can be or not. It's just that's the way it's got to be.
Well, there's really only one spot that they really are required to sit in the wheelchair, and that is at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier for the changing of the guard. By being in that wheelchair, regardless of whether they need to or not,
Right.
that gives us a front row seat. So that's always part of my conversation when I talk to all the veterans, when I call them, because they are concerned that they don't want to be in a wheelchair all day being pushed around. And I said, well, believe it or not, a lot of the veterans will say that they're in such good shape, and then they end up in the wheelchair anyway during the day because it's an exhausting day. It's an exhausting day. So they do feel better by knowing that they really only have to use it at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier for about a half an hour, and then they can be on their own if they want to. But that's really the only time that they have to be in it in DC.
But as you mentioned before, it's nonstop, so
It is.
you go from
Yes.
you
It
go
is
from one place
nonstop.
to the other,
Mhm.
and these memorials are close by each other, but they're not side by side. So
Right.
it takes some walking to get from one spot to another, then you get to that Tomb of the Unknown
Yes.
Soldier and all that stuff.
Yep, and we encourage the guardians to, to take the wheelchair whether they think they need it or not. Take it right beside them and use it to put their purse or their backpack or whatever, and at least they have it. There are plenty of places down in DC around the various memorials that they can sit and relax and take a break on the benches. Over at the Korean, over at World War II, over at Vietnam. So. And also at Air Force, so it is nice. But we do, we pack a wheelchair for every veteran. We send it right down there. So
Now, Janet's job was to gather the information on every one of these veterans going, and then reading it on that Saturday morning. Are you taking over all their duties, or?
I am taking over part of that duty. So I have the whole master list of applications. I have put it on a shared spreadsheet so that our volunteers, our honor flight people can have access to it. And I actually call every single veteran. I've called about 130 so far this year. So the new ones I'm just catching up on. So I've had conversations with them all, and it is such a rewarding part of the job to be able to do that. The minute that you call them and tell them you're from Honor Flight, everything stops. And they sit down and they want just to talk to you about the possibility of their upcoming flight. So I try to, it's like a preliminary phone call to find out about their health and to find out about, the new Real ID process that we now have to,
Get
make
on a
sure
plane.
that we are getting on a plane with a proper ID. So that's a conversation that we have with them, and then trying to get an idea of when they possibly could fly if they get the call to go. So I've talked to about 130 of them so far.
So far.
So far. It's a work in progress, right? It's something fluid because we're constantly getting applications in. So
Yes, and we think we should encourage family members that if your veteran that's in your family is too bashful or just reluctant, the family member should get involved and make sure this happens. And particularly if there are people who are in circumstances where they should be a priority, because we've got the first flight here and coming up very shortly is probably pretty much set in stone, but the future flights, if there's people that have a priority that whether they may not want to talk about it, but somebody in the family should step up and say,
Yes.
hey,
they need to get the application in.
right,
Yes.
that person needs
Yes.
to go.
Sending the application doesn't necessarily mean that they have to fly this year.
Right.
Gina's initial call is to gauge where they
Right.
are and how they are, and you have to keep in mind, like we said, there's a lot of walking and there's a lot of moving around, and we're prepared to help anybody in any condition get from memorial to memorial. We have good bus drivers. We have nice buses. They're air conditioned. They're well fed. The veterans are well fed. But if they can at least send in that application, then we can gauge where they want to be. We don't necessarily think that it's best to have a full flight of terminal veterans, right? Which is why we can
Right.
scatter them throughout the year.
Right.
It's good to have some veterans who are able-bodied and that can, get around and enjoy the memorials while they are able-bodied.
Okay, anything that we should talk about that we haven't covered at this point that you said, oh, we gotta make sure that, one thing I don't know is I wanna mention who's providing this room for the honor flight, do you know offhand who owns this, who rents this facility?
I want to say that it's A.M. Farrell Realty. Is that what you want to say?
That rings a bell to me.
And we're grateful for that too. This is a good hub to work out of for the flight leaders, and I think that may be something that I'd like to touch on. Our flight leaders put a lot of work in. I've done some flights. Gina has done some flights, and we've helped some flight leaders through some flights, and it's a lot of work, but it is the most rewarding job that you could volunteer for. And they put a lot of miles on. They have a lot of tasks, but everyone has done a great job. And it's an extremely rewarding process. The flight leaders are the ones who interview the veterans, go to their houses, fit them for their jackets and their shirts, and let them know what it is to expect. And that could start as early as, now for the May flight and the June flight, because there are a lot of moving parts of honor flight. And they're also the ones who do the interviews for those bios that Janet and now Gina will put together, which is one of the best and most important parts of honor flight is highlighting the service and the things that are important for the veterans to be highlighted at that ceremony.
Will Tom Halleck be back again this year? He's added so much to the ceremonies. He's just a real professional, and it's great to have Tom as the MC for that day. And of course, we always look forward to maybe Larry Eber having time for a song.
He'll be there with a song. He'll be there with one of our favorite songs, I'm sure.
Yeah, and Larry really puts his heart and soul into that too, and it brings a tear to your eye when you hear that song.
Oh, yes, it does. Yes,
Yeah.
brings, and a lot of people will talk about that. There's some favorite parts of that, and he kind of changed it up a year ago. We had it just kind of happened because it was raining that day, and he ended up having to be under the tent when he was singing the song that he normally sings. And this time he actually turned around, and instead of singing to the crowd, he sang to the veterans. And so the veterans really felt a personal connection there in it. And so he has started doing that from now on. So he actually goes in the tent and he sings to the veterans. So they are deeply touched. He does a wonderful job.
Now, you said rain, there's not going to be any rain this year, is that
No,
right? You've
not that
already
we
checked?
know of, no.
Yeah.
We
Absolutely.
checked.
We checked.
You've checked.
Double checked.
Yes,
No rain, mild temperatures, it just,
yes, perfect days.
Yeah, here and in DC.
Yes.
Yeah, one of the reasons that the flights don't go through the summer months is because it gets hot in July and August in DC, so it gets hot up here, but, so.
Because I will say last June it was 103 when I was there. That was the real feel like temperature that day, and
June or what?
and that was June. That was in June, and it was June 21st and June 22nd. Excuse me.
I knew that, but I didn't
We
want
had June 22nd. So yes, but we were very well prepared for the veterans. We had, our team on the ground in DC does a wonderful job, and they had net cloths, and we had coolers, and we had umbrellas for possibly rain, but we were able to use the umbrellas for the heat.
for shade.
So and not one of those veterans complained the whole day. So they were just so happy to be on the bus and so happy to be part of the honor flight group that day and be able to take their tour through their memorials down there that day.
Well, they're so busy, there's no time to complain. It's
No.
just nonstop.
No, not one.
Yeah.
Not one.
At the time we went, I think he's retired now, but we had the world's bravest bus driver. He just closed his eyes and drive through those streets of Washington.
Was it Roger?
That's the best way to drive through DC.
It is.
That's close.
So he was just amazing. I close my eyes. Anything else that we really should be touching on? Anything you can think of there, Judith? Sitting back there, and no?
Who's doing the other half of Janet?
Who's doing the other half of Janet?
Who's doing the other half? If you're doing the gathering, who's doing the talk?
Who's doing the talking?
She.
Tom is.
No.
No.
But we're reading the thing. You'll be reading
Tom,
the thing.
Tom Halleck.
Oh,
is.
Tom's gonna read them.
Tom's gonna read them.
Oh, you're not gonna read them?
No, Tom is gonna read
You
them.
coward.
I am not.
She's busy.
No, no. I think it was Tom is a professional, right? Tom does this for a living. Tom has a great voice. So
Does he know?
He does. Yes, he has graciously accepted that to do that part of it, and he is very much looking forward to it. So
Okay.
yeah, so Tom Halleck will be reading the bios this year. So
Okay. Now we talked about needing volunteers. How little or how much can a volunteer do if they want to help out?
well, you can really do as little or as much as you want to do. I know when I came on a few years ago, I had come over. My dad was he was the United States Marine, and he never got the opportunity to go on honor flight. So his best friend and best man in his wedding got the opportunity to go. And I came over for Jim's flight, and the day I walked in here was I just felt like this organization was calling my name. So that Sunday I actually called Janet and said that I wanted to be involved, and it started off little, right? It started off going to meetings and helping out at some fundraisers, and then you really got the bug to, I really had wanted to be a flight leader, and then I got the opportunity to do that. And so I did 2 flights last year, and just love everything that North Country Honor Flight does. So that's why I'm so willing to do. I have a full-time job, but this is like a second full-time job for me, and I love it. So this one's volunteer, right? So
Doesn't pay as much.
It doesn't.
But it does pay.
It does pay. It's very rewarding. So like I said, you can come in and do whatever your schedule allows for, really. And you just find yourself being the more you do, maybe the more you want to do, which was my case, which was Jerica's case. So but we look for additional volunteers everywhere we go. So
I think there's, when everyone's here at the ceremony, they're always looking for something to do. And what we do have is a good group of people who are able to set up the ceremony and make sure that all of those boxes are ticked. And so the real work, the hard work, is between the ceremonies. It's over the winter. It's planning fundraisers. It's finding volunteers for fundraisers. And like Gina said, that could be organizing a fundraiser from start to finish, or it could be helping with parking at a fundraiser. There's as much or as little as anyone wants to do. But the real work is done before that 5 a.m. wake-up call on Saturday morning, and after the veterans and the guardians get back Saturday night. The bulk of the work is done in the winter, preparing for the next year and between ceremonies.
Yes, the ceremony itself on those days starts at 7 a.m., but people are here 5 o'clock or earlier to get this
Yes.
set up.
Yes.
So it doesn't just, you don't just set up the night before. You get here early that day to set this up and to make sure everything goes as planned. And it amazes me so much that when you see so many of the law enforcement and the bikers. But for the very first flight the North Country Honor Flight did actually went out of Albany, and it was a cool day, and the bikers from up here drove down from here to Albany in 30+ degree temperatures. It just amazing. I don't think I'd go on a 2.5 hour trip to to Albany on a bike, but they did. And those different bikers have been here, and it's amazing, and it's very heartwarming to see that turnout too. And I'm sure some of them wouldn't miss it no matter what was happening in the world.
And they come out in full force, and it's grown. It has grown so much over these last few years. So Thunder in the Berg is a force to be reckoned with. That's for sure.
And you really don't see a large reduction in the numbers that show up, whether it's raining or snowing or 103
No.
degrees.
Yeah.
And I've heard it very often. You think these bikers were coming in and the law enforcement, and they automatically say, they fought in the rain and the snow and the cold
That's right.
and any condition that they needed to. So we'll ride for them once or 4 times a year.
Yeah, our law enforcement agencies get to really hear about the veterans that they pick up. They really have these great conversations with them in the car, and they just feel so thankful and so happy to be able to do this for them, that they love being part of it. So,
Yeah, a few years back, we knew that George Brendler in Shazy was going to be picked up by the law enforcement, so I was waiting in the bushes outside his house, and I introduced the video on that one by saying, law enforcement here is here to pick
Yes.
up George Brendler.
yes,
Didn't say why initially, but
Mhm.
became quite obvious.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So on those. So if you got a neighbor and all of a sudden you see these flashing lights at 5 o'clock in the morning on one of these dates,
Don't think the worst.
don't think the worst. It may be something good.
We do tell our veterans when we go out that they will be getting, that pickup by law enforcement and the motorcycles, and maybe they want to notify their neighbors about it.
And many of them don't want to notify their neighbors. They
No.
said, "Oh no, let them guess."
Yes.
Well, let them think the worst. I don't care. Okay, again, the dates.
May 17th, June 28th, September 6th, October 4th.
So even if you don't have time to volunteer, if you'd like to come here and cheer on these veterans and thank them for what they've done, and the evenings, that's I said the ceremony starts at 7, but the evening, what time do they usually get back to plane?
We ask for people to be back to the Oval around 8:30, and to follow our Facebook page in case there's any delays for
Once
weather
in a while,
or
once
for.
in a while, there's been delays.
That's right. And even when there's delays, if we've had a flight come in at 8:30 and another flight come in closer to midnight,
Yes.
Yeah.
and there was still a crowd
They're
of
still
people at the Oval waiting to welcome those veterans home, and that's
That says a
that's
lot.
North Country.
Yeah. So we want to thank Danny Kafitz for sure for starting all this with a group of veterans back in 2012 and 2013, and getting all this going, and for Barry and the others who have done this over all these years, and yourselves. Is there anything else that we should cover that I just wasn't smart enough to bring up today?
Well, I'd like to thank you for doing this, giving us this opportunity every year, and every ceremony, whether it's raining or pouring or hot. I use those videos that you do as a resource to check how many veterans we've flown quickly, or to remind myself of who was on a flight, and that's a time capsule for North Country Honor Flight that has always been there, and so we appreciate you and your service to Honor Flight.
And speaking of numbers, what's the next honor flight? What number flight is it?
61 and 62. So this will be, our website right now has 900 that we've sent to.
900 veterans?
We've sent 900 veterans to Washington, and by the end of the year
Over 1,000.
we'll be over 1,000.
And it's a round trip too. It's not just a one-way flight to DC, right?
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So far, we've brought them all back.
We have.
Everyone.
Yeah.
Nobody's decided to stay while they were down there.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, as you said, there's so many of the ones who have gone show up again because that trip was so important to them, and they want to support the ones who are going now. But we can't say it enough here. If anybody watching this, or anybody who has a family member or a neighbor or whatever that deserves to be on here, don't be bashful. Don't wait. Contact the North Country Honor Flight for their Facebook page or their website, and to find out more information. Show up on those flight dates, and you may have to wait till the bus has left the premises to talk to somebody, but you can at least find out a little bit more about how to get involved. And there are certain people that show up every year, and one of the saddest parts of the day is when they read the veterans we have lost that went on previous flights since the last flight. And of course the one in May is always got the biggest list because it's been such a big gap.
It's a
So
very big list.
yeah, so
Yeah.
there's
Yeah, we lost some. We lost 2 big ones this year. Not that they're all that big, but Myron Degenhart
Zeke, yep.
passed away. Zeke Degenhart and Tony Gagliardi also passed away. So they were the World War II, 2 of our World War II that we know about. So
So that's when you hear that and see that, then you appreciate the doing this while you still can with these people, thanking them while you can. Saying thank you after they're gone doesn't quite work.
Right.
But those veterans continue to thank us after they're gone because many families choose North Country Honor Flight as a beneficiary in lieu of flowers, and we have raised enough to send many veterans in the memory of those veterans, and so it's nice that keeps going.
Okay. Anything else, ladies?
No,
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Judy, for pushing those buttons. And we begin at the North Country Honor Flight. And once again, if you want to learn more, visit their Facebook page. They're online, or if you see any of the people involved, don't be bashful about asking them how you can get involved and what you can do to help out. Thanks for watching.